you're really asking the borough to fund private, these private homeowners who want to maintain the docks. I don't want to debate it, but. But
that was not the intention. The whole idea was creating a mechanism to resolve the whole situation.
Yeah.
And that's where this alternative.
But it's theoretically possible.
And that's the mechanism. The mechanism.
But these 18 property owners could go buy land somewhere, turn it over to the DEP. That would be an option. I think Councilman Henwood said that.
Well, again, it's a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
It's almost like saying to somebody, okay, go find some piece of property and then be restricted and don't get any ratables on it, just to replace, it's a very difficult situation.
But they want to keep their docks.
I'm not minimizing that, but again, how do we, I understand what you're saying. I mean, they take almost everything. It's not wetlands, it's invasive species,
I know it's
a
complicated.
very difficult task that they give us to do. So, at this point.
But I think it's important, when we had our public meeting, we had it here, right? Greg, how long ago was that?
That was.
September 2011.
Was it September 2011? I would bet the conversation included statements that there would be no replacement property.
That was determined by DEP.
No, I'm just saying, as far as what the public was made aware. I understand that it has evolved, but it has evolved. Now you need replacement property. Now you want to use the rent money to pay for that replacement property. So it's all changing.
Well,
I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying it's complicated, and what we started out thinking how we might help solve the problem has morphed into a much more.
I've never seen any language depicting that these monies were going to be used for anything but other creative properties in town, never to maintain the docks. I never saw any language.
And I think at this point, we've hit a wall. If it's a small wall, but we're not going to go past this point. Certainly, there's got to be some other way to do this.
it is a snag. It is a snag.
It's like I said, good luck with this.
It is a snag. It's a big snag.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
And
Finally, on the conference, we have Chief Skidmore. Chief, step up. Thanks for coming down tonight, Chief. In the past, the council has asked for you to look at some creative ways to deal with the traffic on possibly just the north end of Undercliff, but we're always looking at both sides of Undercliff. And then with the new school and at the north end, we've had some problems. So I know you've looked into it and you have a couple ideas you'd like to present before the councils.
I do. First, I want to apologize. I did not realize I was going to be first on the list.
No problem. No problem.
Not anymore.
I looked at the different scenarios. First off, a little history. The new George Washington School this year is going to have close to 500 students in it. Okay, that includes pre-K. A lot of them are being bused. The busing, the way it's set up, the safest and most practical way is the buses go up Orchard, discharge, and then continue south on Undercliff Avenue and exit the borough via Route 5. Now, at rush hour, which is between 7:30 and 8:30 basically, you have buses traveling south on Undercliff Avenue and regular vehicular traffic trying to go north. And it creates a huge bottleneck. On top of that, the drop-off zone for parents driving their children is on Orchard between on Undercliff, between Palisades and Orchard. So a lot of people who are coming to drop their children off are taking Undercliff north, coming down Orchard, going around the block to drop their children off on Undercliff in front of the school. because they're trying to avoid the traffic on the road. So, to soften this and make things move easier, suggestions were made by council members to look into alternatives. One alternative is every morning we make Undercliff Avenue one-way south during school. It would be from roughly 7:30 to 8:45. What this would require, though, is we would have to have an officer at the top of Park, the top of North, and the horseshoe turn. Sterling is one way going the other way. Orchard is already being utilized. That would be one alternative. That, though, will generate overtime, a lot of overtime. Unfortunately, manpower is low. To staff those 3 intersections will be 3 officers. If I have an officer in each school, that's 5 officers. Then I have to have 2 on the road, that's 7 officers. I don't have that many officers working a shift. So we would be paying overtime. The overtime bill would roughly be $3,000 a week or $12,000 for the month. To staff those intersections to do that. Now, we can try it temporarily and staff them fully for the first two to 3 weeks of school. And then we can start possibly pulling officers back once people get the gist of it. But people are not going to take this change lightly. Because it's gonna be people who live on Undercliff Avenue, just north of, let's say, North Street, just for an example, who will want to go to their house at that time in the morning, and they're going to be told they can't go that way. And if there's not an officer there, they're going to go around the barricade. And crossing guards are not authorized or trained to direct traffic. That's not their job. That's not what they're trained for, and becomes a safety liability.
What about specials?
Specials, I have 2 that I have during the day available for that, and I usually use them at the schools to keep the traffic moving at the drop-offs in front of the schools. Now, if I use them somewhere, I'm gonna have to come up with extra officers. And if I don't have a special every day in the morning, on those days, I have to have a police officer there. The school has been adamant, they do not want me pulling my officers. I have no intention upon pulling my officers. There will be an officer for a special at each school every day. I will not bet on that. The other option is for the mayor and council to make Undercliff Avenue from Palisades to Route 5, one-way, south, up.
24/7.
24/7. Now, that will be inconvenient for a while to the people who live on Undercliff Avenue. No question about it. They're going to be, nobody likes change. Change, even small change, creates issues. But in the long run, the benefit to the overall quality of life on Undercliff Avenue, I think would be huge. Because you would stop, even on the off hours, there's a problem with the bridge, there's an accident on River Road, whatever it was, and traffic starts dumping onto Undercliff, it would stop that. They can't do it, because they can only go south. So they can't jump on there to go north. When we have an emergency situation, we shut Undercliff down anyway. That's part of our protocol. We will send if we have an emergency situation on River Road, we shut down River Road, we send everything up Route 5, we have an officer at the horseshoe turn, and nobody goes down Undercliff. We have to keep it open for emergency vehicles. So, like I said, it would be a huge change for people, but I think in the long run, the amount of traffic that would be lessened on Undercliff Avenue, I think they would appreciate more, not to mention the less damage to their vehicles by getting sideswiped, mirrors taken off. You have a bus, a car, a UPS truck, all trying to pass each other, and it creates issues. Or,
I'll give up.
None of the above, we can try and, you know, I can throw a couple officers up there. The biggest thing is, and I know it sounds, and I don't mean this meeting in any way, shape, or form, but every year at the beginning of school, we have to teach everybody the rules again. Everybody forgets what we did last year, so we have to teach everybody how to do it again. So I'm gonna have extra officers up there anyway, so that parents know they can't drop off here, they can't drop off there, they're not supposed to be coming this way. And we can just see how it works out, and if it continues to create a problem, we can try it temporarily. But the part-time, if you wanted to try that, again, it would create an overtime expense, but if you wanted to try it and see how it goes, you may get a reaction from the public up there saying, you know what, this is nice, can't we do this all the time? And it could become the answer to your problem right off the bat.
Well, Billy, it's been mentioned before, just simply in regards to the parking issue. I believe your predecessor might have mentioned it, or Mary might have mentioned it at the time where, you know, when you're losing the Palisades side of Undercliff to duplexes, you know, now you're still sitting with the eastern portion of Undercliff that you could potentially park single. You know, it could improve our parking situation and potentially, you know, ease the traffic problems.
You could. You want to be careful with that, though. You don't want to bottleneck the street too much. You know, if there's sections that you may want to do that, because there are sections of Undercliff that are a little wider than other sections, where you don't want to create choke points, obviously. But that would also be an option that you could explore. But you would only be able to do it if you had the traffic going one way, obviously.
Chief, Mr. Mayor, Chief and I discussed this, and he knows how I stand on it. And I will just say that I think, in my own opinion, I think, first of all, I commend you for giving a lot of thought and actually come up here and proposing 24/7 one way. You're a brave man. I think it's a non-starter. I think it really has nothing to do with Undercliff. It has a lot to do with Undercliff residents, but I think it goes to the people in Colony. I think it's everyone in the North End. If you only have one shot going north on the Saturday night, there's restaurants, and there's holiday season, it's the only way going north. I think it's going to be tough. Now, with regard to the Mr. Dorn suggested, which is the hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, which a lot of other towns are doing, which we're going to have to act on tonight, by the way, for you to get your signs in place and for you to do your scheduling and whatnot. We're going to have to do it quickly. The school's starting, and I support that. Yes, there's going to be an overtime component. I'm not going to tell you your job. If it's a week, if it's 2 weeks, it's 3 weeks, if it's 12,000, it's 20,000. If we decide to do it, that's a cost that we're going to incur because that's what's good for the town. But I do think at some point, by the way, it is the law. You can't go one way during these hours. And maybe it's just one policeman after 3 weeks who sits there and every sees a car coming north, he get a ticket. And if there's a local resident that says, you know what, I want to make a quick right and go home, then they're going to have to get over it. We're going to manage it. It might cost some money early on, but I think that's the way to go.
That's why I said we would be able to hopefully pull the officers back.
Right.
You know, once we could get permanent signs put up, and we could start with, I don't like to go out and just slam everybody right away. You know, you go out, you give everybody warnings, you give them a chance to adjust, and you start issuing summonses if it's necessary. And hopefully inside, it's not going to be a week, but inside 2, 3, 4 weeks, people would get the gist of it, say, oh, I can't go that way. And now you're just dealing with the odd person who just isn't familiar and I didn't know. But to originally start it, I just wanted to know that there's going to be a cost involved.
I agree, but I drop off my child at 10 o'clock. There's no, for the first week or two, perhaps, but I don't think it has to be more than that, to be honest with you, because we just put up, the shift starts at 8 or ends at 8, right?
Well, to help.
Whatever it is.
Well, whatever it is, but
Help
like,
alleviate
say 8
overtime,
o'clock.
I've changed the shifts.
I mean,
Shifts now go 7 to 3.
I was just envisioning something simpler, but even if having a barricade on top of Route 5 sign, one of the officers at 7:25 putting the barricade, so when you come up Route 5, you'll see a barricade with a big sign, southbound traffic only.
That's what we.
We don't have to be,
Oh, so you let people go north and make the right?
no, well, I mean, our biggest problem is.
Let me just
Slow
tell you
down.
from my experience, okay? okay, of doing traffic in this town for 25 years. They will go around the marked police car with its lights on. They will.
True, but I mean, there could be one officer then, if you see a traffic, they're issuing that vehicle, pulling him over, instead of having, he'll get it after his first ticket.
Oh, yeah, that's what I say. We would have them at those intersections. We would put up barricades. The radio car would be there, and it would say no left, or, I'm sorry, no right turn. And we would have the hours. And we would do it, and as people, because people are gonna come up and say, wait, I didn't know about this. Yes, you did, because we put it in the newspaper, we put it on TV, we, you know. But people are going to try and get around it.
Chief, we
But after the
decided
first
to-
couple of weeks, I think it'll ease up. And I don't think it'll be required every intersection, but we're still gonna need an officer in the area there.
I was
We
just trying to
may get
make
away with a special.
There seems to be a lot of traffic coming off of Route 5, coming down.
Yeah.
But two for a penny and for a pound, right? I mean, that's what you said. You know, we can't do it halfway, we gotta do it all the way for an hour and a half.
At least in the beginning.
At least in the beginning,
Absolutely.
we have to be shut down, and this is the way it's going to be. And then once we've established it, and people have gotten used to
Custom
it,
to it.
I think we'd be able to ease, that's why I said we have to do it 2 or 3 weeks, and then we can start possibly pulling people back.
We looking?
What do we have to do tonight to make it happen if we decide to do it? Right, Mayor?
Well, I think we need to decide tonight for you to have it possible.
Well, I would like it as soon as possible, because I do have to get a media campaign out there so people
Can we
know.
do a trial? You know, try it for 2 or 3 months.
Sean, you want to take a straw poll, you want to read those?
DOT has to approve.
I propose it's a motion to make on Cliff Avenue one-way south between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 8:45 a.m. during school hours.
During school hours.
Are we gonna do, just out of curiosity, a afternoon?
Afternoon is not a problem.
Okay, that's fine.
Afternoon, you don't have the backups on the cliff.
Yep.
It's not rush hour.
It's not rush hour.
Perfect, all right.
Does everybody, okay, so during school hours.
So,
Councilman Henwood?
Barbara,
Yes.
just for purposes of clarification, there are police powers that the borough has in conjunction with the chief to deal with emergency traffic situations. So that would be one of the reasons we would be implementing this, that it's deemed in the opinion of the chief, the governing body, that this constitutes a safety issue.
Public safety issue.
Does that include, does that include giving the ability to apply the signage and the things we used to?
Yeah, we can talk about that, but normally, change traffic, we have to do an ordinance.
Opinion of council.
And so, in order to do it as promptly as possible, because school is starting in a few weeks, that we need to take action immediately. So I just want to make that clarification.
Should I add that to the motion? I
That'd
have
be
been
a-
deemed an opinion of council and police chief as a emergency.
Constitutes an emergency situation requiring prompt action.
Okay, so, motion to make on Cliff Avenue one-way south between the hours of 7:30 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. during school hours and deemed in the opinion of the council and the police chief as an emergency situation requiring prompt attention. Is that okay? Councilman Henwood?
Chief, thanks for taking the lead on this. Good job. Thank you. Yes.
Councilman Duran?
Yes, thanks, Chief.
Councilman Monteith is still absent. Councilman Bandel?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan?
Yes.
And Councilman Bartel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor? Can I just, while he's here, because he's probably going home, and I don't blame you, I would want to point out that the chief has reached out to the mayor and I regarding National Night Out on Tuesday nights, which was a couple weeks ago. And it's a big thing nationwide, and he really wants to bring it back next year, so we're looking for our support with the new park opening up and really getting that kicking going again. It's been a few years since, and he's asked us to support him on that, so thank you for that as well.
Good idea.
Thank you, chief. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
This time I'll open the meeting to the public. Anyone wish to be heard? Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. Peter DePaul, Citizens on Cliff Avenue. Due to the parking in the North End, and since the chief spoke about the 24/7 approach, can there be some serious consideration of how to solve some of the parking since it's disappearing due to the new homes being built? And that will be a constant and building problem, losing the parking. So residents that are there won't find a space. One way from north to south, as was proposed by the chief, may be a solution with certain problems here and there where you can't get by. Under Cliff Avenue, for most of it in the north end, is about 24, 25 feet wide. It's not full as wide as, say, the church, which is 30 feet wide. Why I say the church, that's a one-way example that we've been using forever in town.
The whole Roger Church.
Yes, well, thank you.
It's not a church.
So I'd like to have the mayor and council continue with the police chief to study and implement, test out where we get more parking on both sides of the street, and then maybe one way, I don't think it has to be one way, to north and south on northern end of Cliff Avenue. Thank you for your time.
Peter, that's one of the biggest questions asked when you're out. Kevin deals with it, I deal with it, everybody's concerned, especially on the north end of Undercliff, it's parking.
Within the next month, 10 spaces will disappear.
This will be, this is what we're concerned, we have a concern for the school opening and,
Yes.
traffic, but, it's constantly an issue that we're thinking about.
Mr. Mayor, I understand there's an application from the Presbyterian Church to dig out the front of their property and do some slanted parking, which again is gonna eliminate another like 6, 7 spots for residents parking, and maybe adds it to them. And there's gonna have to be a solution for that. That's not. And
They
that-
should remove the curb.
Well, they're gonna be looking to do that.
One
and
way
they-
in, one way out.
And they knew what they had coming in terms of the existing infrastructure, and they should be, talking to the school about Sunday parking there, because I'm sure if they give it to the River Pond, they give it to the church. I think that's something we're gonna have to take a stand on, to what degree we can, coming up soon.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to be heard, Mary?
Mary Hill, excuse me, Mary, I'm just gonna have to talk quickly because I had another whole set of other things. I'm sorry, he's parking on Undercliff Avenue, and then I'm gonna go into that.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd spoken to Greg twice about the approval that was done before the North Bergen Board of Adjustment, where 100 spaces for the helipad, well, not for the helipad, but as part of the approval for the helipad at Palisade General Hospital is going to be at City Place in Edgewater. It was published sometime in July, and we have 45 days in which to object to it. I have no idea whether they feel that they can put parking in Edgewater, this project that's in North Bergen, without having come before some board or the mayor and council or somebody and said, we want to do this. I know when the application came for the new City Place project for the office building and the pier, the owners of the commercial there were concerned about losing parking spaces. And somewhere on the outside of that meeting, an arrangement was made, and I guess they were assured that they were not going to lose parking spaces. I had brought up before 100 parking spaces, and Phil had said that it was temporary, and that, but apparently it's not temporary, and part of their approval in North Bergen has included these 100 spaces as their part of their approval. So I hope that Mayor and Council looks into it. Greg indicates that Phil is looking into it, but it has to be done. I'm concerned about the time frame on it, because we don't want it to be approved, without someone lodging an objection to it. I don't know if it has to be in court or whatever it is. I had some questions quickly, just on what Pat had said at Sagadin on the Colony. I don't understand why Edgewater is looking for property to substitute it. I thought that would be the Colony's obligation if they want to use the leases. I don't understand why we're looking for property. And nowhere in any of the discussions did it ever come up that the lease money, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, because we're saying, we're gonna get you the extra property, and then we're gonna use the money you're gonna pay us to rent that property to pay for the property that we're giving you. It's like we're paying for everything. I don't get that, and I'm sure you'll work it out from what I heard in the discussions here.
That was the objection from majority of us. We
I-
come up with the property for them.
Obviously,
We're good.
everybody was like, where's this coming from? The other question I had was the Green Acres. Normally, in what I've looked at on the Green Acres, when you're doing replacement property, it's not 1-to-1, it's 3-to-1. So I don't know if that's confirmed on the diversion but diversions are usually 3-to-1, not 1-to-1. Land-wise, numbers of acres. Okay, had some quick questions on the resolutions. I guess you haven't picked who your DPW staff is going to be, you're gonna do that in close and then come out. And in terms of the resolution approving a COA unit for BNR to be put onto 38 COA, property on Breland, if someone could give me a number as to how many of those units have been now sold for other properties and how many's left. The other question I have on Hyde Park on the affordable housing is they've added 100 units. They have to have increased their COA requirements. And originally, the COA requirements, they were meeting the minimum, not minimum, but what was required. And then we were getting some extra pieces there. You know, they were giving, I don't know how many it was, 5, 10, whatever, extra units that the town would get approval for, but it wasn't required for their project. I think they're probably way over that at this point by putting in 100 additional units. So, I was wondering what number they're up to now. Now, in terms of Cliff Avenue, we are going to lose, and the church probably may lose it for you too, but we're going to lose the properties in front of what was Villa Tijuana, Pepe LaSalle's property. And the Higgins' property is getting ready to, and when they open, we're losing all that parking space. If you make, and I have no problem with them making it temporarily one way for the schools, but I would like to see it permanently from North Street south. Just like the church, you have the north end of the, by the church, I mean, the Cliff Avenue 2 ways, and south, you have it 2 ways, but the section in the middle is 1 way, as a trying, and then see what the church comes up with. Because you're gonna make it 1 way. I'm parked in front of Ilkes's old house. I'm facing north. I leave at the time the school comes, because I'm one of the people that were complaining about the bus. I now have to literally make a U-turn to go, to leave. Because we're on the opposite side. And I can't park south at night because it's a 2-way street. So that becomes a problem for us people.
Mary, say it again. You're saying from North
Directly
Street.
across from my.
North Street, no, I know where you're talking, but you're saying from North Street
South, 1 way, south.
Because it relates the south end situation with Edgewater Place, you're saying.
Right.
Except that when you go down North Street, you can't make the left, so you can't keep going. But you're going south, so you can't go right.
But you're going south and you can then go again
Got it.
Glenwood.
Can you
And you hit the
park on
left.
Glenwood, Mary? You can't park. Can you continue that in front of Jorax Park on the left, southbound?
Further down Glenwood?
Yeah.
No.
All right.
You'll have to
There's
garbage trucks through there. And I agree that there are certain parts, like where the wall is on Undercliff across from the new housing, you wouldn't, even if you made it 2 ways instead of parking on both streets, you wouldn't let people park there. Obviously, people are not going to get out if you do that because it's just too tight. That's the smallest area. So I think striping the parking on both sides and say, here you can, here you're across from the driveway, they can't pull out. So like Tansey's, I was thinking of Tansey's. You couldn't let them park directly to their corner because they could never swing out to make the turn. So if you stripe it so that it would say 20 feet, north of their driveway, then when they go out in the morning, if it's the south, they can make the turn on an angle and pull out.
There's an article in the paper that the town of Belmar striped all their spots, and they picked up 20% more parking because people tighten out. Whether we go south or one way or not, that might be consideration because it puts people in their boxes.
And that's something we had looked at on North Street, where you could potentially pick up spots, not only just with existing, but potentially changing the side of the road.
But I would really ask if you look today, Undercliff, 1 way, from at least North Street, see how we're North Street south and have parking on both sides of the street. Because what's going to happen is when they take those 2 parking places out, everybody's going to be shifting north. And then,
Well, you know what,
like you say, are going to be upset.
What about?
Happy too.
Yeah, all the people that are upset that you made it south, now you're going to be taking all their parking spaces because it's going to be killing and we're gonna move down to Myrtle. And now Myrtle people are gonna be screaming.
Mr. Mayor, the top of Undercliff, before you hit the horseshoe, that's at State Park on the right. Now, I'm not one for getting rid of parks, but it seems to me when push comes to shove, is there any application or effort that can be made? Because that would be like a 20, 25 spot parking. I mean, would you be willing to give up a park for parking?
Use it for parking. Use it for parking.
I'm just,
Huh?
Use it for parking.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I think it came up a few meetings ago, and they said, well, the state owns it, and that's a whole
the state
different.
doesn't own it.
But I mean, it's really not,
The state owns the center, the
But I'm saying, what is-
one on the other side.
what is the process to even like explore that opportunity? Because I think, you know, it's a park, but is it a park? I mean,
Rarely see a person.
yeah, I mean, Artie's dogs, a couple of geese.
And they could still go there, the dogs in the park.
There's a little park, there's a little park across the street from that they could go, but is there like does that ever happen?
Yes. I'm not for that, my neighborhood, I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of flack, whether it's park or not park, to take it for parking.
Don't change your saying.
Yeah. I would not be for that.
When was the last time you walked in there?
Up there,
No, I'm kidding. No, I'm just saying, like, I mean, like, parking, I mean, like, at some point, you gotta do something, because I don't think it's realistic to expect many more spots whether we go.
but that's why I'm saying if you make it one way, I think you will realize.
Do you know how many will pick up if we do that? I mean, is
I have
there any rough calculation?
No idea, you have to see
Yeah.
where you,
Sure.
so you don't wanna block the drive. If you did it right, if you could start all over again, what you do is when you set up your houses, the driveways are opposite each other.
Right.
So that you don't have to worry when I'm pulling out my driveway, it's a driveway behind me, nobody's parked there, I can pull
Yeah.
into there and make the swing. That, you can't redo it, obviously, but you don't wanna block people's driveways either. But we have in the past required, there is one spot up by the church, a house north of the church, that they have two driveways and there's a space on the street between the two driveways. They didn't give them, you know,
Right.
mega parking things for them. They just have driveways that go into their garage. And I think that's an issue that the, this is planning board, or whoever they're for, that you can't give them the 150 feet that
Right.
they're building on. That can't all be their driveway.
Agree with you, Mayor.
Some of it should be on the street parking. It's for their guests, nothing else.
I agree with you 100%.
So that's an issue also. But please really consider at least making it south that far. And then if they develop the church and it's a problem, you could, you know, extend the one way further down. That would give us North Street up and down.
Yeah.
And Glenwood's already one way. So, thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Dennis?
Dennis Gallagher. Question about the status of the green acres in violation and just north of the elevation. You know,
I don't know the status. There's, that,
well, this is a long-term thing, you know, at least 10 years. Certainly, we had from the get-go, it was within our power to just say, hey, you can't do this. But we never did that. And now we're 10 years or more into this thing, and nobody here knows what's going on, literally.
I don't have an update. Phil, do we have anything that you know?
If it's a matter pending before the DEP, we don't get updates. They don't update us.
Why, we had the power from the get-go to say, you know that you're not supposed to do this.
Wait a minute, hold on a second. You just asked us about the DEP. You asked us about the status of the DEP. We don't know the status of the DEP.
I'm talking about-
I'm trying to answer your question. We do not get periodic updates from the DEP if there is a pending violation. You may know more than we do about precisely what the status of that violation is. I do not know. That's what you asked.
Yeah, okay. Well, just we basically knew almost immediately that they got to this book. Knew it had been sort of like a forest. It was a steep slope. we had just now put a steep slope ordinance in. There was no way on earth that we were unaware that this happened. And yet, somehow or other, it's gone on and on and on.
Well, violations have
never, as far as I can tell, ever tried to do anything about it.
Didn't you just say that the DEP issued violations for the very conduct you described?
That
Didn't they? Isn't that what you said?
no. It's, on the
So-
face of it, it's a violation. We had put in an ordinance, the town did, put in an ordinance saying that that was, in fact, steep slope.
I don't know if it is or isn't. I'm not.
Okay, well, town did this. It changed that property to say it's a steep slope. That was prior to Mr. Dives turning around and tearing the thing apart. They just took almost all the trees off.
Was he issued a violation for that, from the DEP? Okay.
I'm not sure of that. That's why I'm asking.
And
I would think that somewhere.
your first question was, what is the status of the violation? And the answer is, I don't think we know what the current status is. I know it has been the subject of several newspaper articles discussing that DEP has issued fines and violations. I do not know if there's an appeal. I don't know the status of the appeal. I do not know if there's been some agreement worked out. I don't know. I do not know.
Okay, so you do apparently know a little bit more than I do, because I haven't seen or heard anything about it. I just know it happened.
The incident which you are describing happened over 7 years ago?
Yes.
Okay, so 7 years ago.
More like 10.
10 years ago. So I don't know. Maybe it's been resolved. I don't know.
So is it possible to get, you probably had more of an ability to look into this than
I would doubt that.
I do. True.
Yeah, I would. I have no more ability to, what special skills do I have?
Yeah. But since it's a thing that's going on in our town, and we should have knowledge about what's going on in our town, so you don't think there's anything like that possible?
No, I take my directions from the governing body.
Well, I understand that, and I'm addressing the governing body.
If we can, we'll make an effort to look into the status of the property you're discussing.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, I'll close the open portion of the meeting. At this time, I request a motion to go out of the regular order of business and enter closed session for DPW staff and personnel. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Councilman Henwood?
Yes.
Councilman Doran?
Yes.
Councilman Vidal?
Yes.
Councilman Jordan?
Yes.
And Councilman Bartolomeo?